Hi there, and thanks for listening. My name is Daniel Kringer, and this is the SkanFest podcast, an interview series for the Skaneateles Festival, a summer concert series based in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. In these talks, we are spending time getting to know our visiting artists who travel the world making music at the very top of their field. The Claremont Trio, made up of violinist Emily Bruskin and cellist Julia Bruskin, and pianist Sophiko Simsive, is lauded as one of America's finest young chamber groups, Strad Magazine. The trio is sought after for its thrillingly virtuosic and richly communicative performances and has gained among many accolades, competition prizes, concert engagements, and album recordings. I am happy to have Julia and Sophiko here today to talk. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's great to be with you.
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. So, of course, Julia is a co-artistic director of the Skaneateles Festival, and we had a great conversation with her and Aaron in episode 1, so go check it out if you haven't heard it. We will get into the beginnings of the trio, but I'm wondering, Sophiko, if you can just tell me a little bit about your background and how music found its way into your life.
Sure. Thank you for asking that question. I don't get asked that nearly as often.
Really? That's surprising.
Well, I am born and raised in Tbilisi, Georgia, and my first steps were actually taught by my mother, who specializes in piano for specifically young children. So we didn't have a nanny growing up at home, so she would bring me to her studios, and I would sit on her lap and listen to her teach for many, many hours. Sometimes I would run under the grand piano, and sometimes just on her lap. And at some point, she tells me, of course, I don't remember this, but she tells me that at some point I walked up to the piano and I started playing this Georgian lullaby tune with both hands at the same time without any mistake, which she probably taught many, many hours to her students, but I guess I had picked up some of the tunes, yes. So that was the initial attraction towards piano, and she immediately noticed that I was happy to play piano, and we had a whole game that she would teach me how to play the right hand and how to play the left hand, and this was before I learned how to read music. And my task was to put both hands together. So it was kind of a nice little game we had going on. And at 5 years old, I had this whole repertoire built up as somebody who never read music but could still play decently a really nice selection of repertoire. And when I turned 6 and she brought me to the music school, of course, she had to also teach me how to read music, and I hated it so much because then I had to do all the work. So those are the beginning steps.
Yeah. So piano was never really a question. It was kind of like an automatic.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, it was really not a choice I had to make, though I must mention that there was time in my childhood I played a few other instruments as well. I played classical guitar for 3 years, quite seriously. I could play Bach Prelude on the guitar. I even have a little recording of it at the conservatory in Tbilisi. So that I tried, and also violin and viola for a little bit, and I played a few notes on cello and harp as well, but somehow I always gravitated towards piano. That felt most natural to me. So, and as a child, you want to do something that's kind of easy and effortless. So that's why. Yeah.
So along your development, as you got more and more serious about piano, was there a particular moment or a person that kind of really pushed you further down the path, making it a vocation?
Definitely. I was lucky enough that I could say I grew up on stage. I always played recitals, and I even got to play with orchestra when I was 6 years old, which is quite unusual in a way. So I was very lucky to get those opportunities. However, when I was about 10 years old, I participated at a national piano, it was not piano, it was just competition, music competition. And there I met a person conductor, Lev Marquis, who noticed me, and he asked about me, and he thought that he could help me get performances opportunities abroad. And since that point, he kind of took me under his wing and helped me through my entire career. So it was because of his suggestion that I moved from Georgia at the age of 15, and I went to study at the Amsterdam Conservatory. And since then, yes, he's stayed one of the most important people in my life.
Are there any musicians or maybe figures in general that inspire you, like more generally, people you've heard perform? Or
my trio mates.
Good answer. Good. This will lead us very well.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always in awe, not just about their musicianship and performing skills, but just that they are such wonderful people and so kind and generous and just full of kindness and open heart. So I feel always inspired making music with them.
Well, that'll lead us very naturally into talking about the trio, right? So everybody loves an origin story, and I'm curious to know how things got started. Obviously, Julia, you talked a little bit in the first interview we had about growing up with your sister, playing instruments and whatnot, and I wonder maybe you can kind of lead us into how that connects into you guys forming the trio and whatnot.
Sure. Well, as I had said in the last one, my family used to play together. My parents are great amateurs, and we would play string quartets as a family or piano quartets. And then my sister and I both studied at the New England Conservatory Prep Division, and we did chamber music there quite seriously. We had a wonderful coach, Laura Bluestein, who was sort of led us through our first trios when we were in middle school, maybe 12 or 13. We played with a wonderful pianist, actually all through high school as well. So we had been playing trios for a while. And then when we got to college, we eventually at a music festival, I met our original pianist out in Taos, New Mexico, and we sort of formed the Claremont Trio for real at that moment. I think a trio's always kind of appealed to us in a string quartet, which I also love to play, I should say. But there's a whole lot of time and energy spent trying to unify the voice of the quartet, trying to blend, trying to make everyone sound really as one voice. And in a trio, sometimes we do that, but many other times there's this opportunity for everyone to be kind of their own individual personality. And then it becomes sort of more of a conversation amongst, I think partially because the instruments are more different. The piano has its own voice that, it's sort of a meeting of three individuals rather than in a quartet. It feels like one blended entity.
Yeah. So where does the name come from?
So Claremont comes from Claremont Avenue in New York City. My sister and I were studying, we did the joint program with Columbia and Juilliard. And we were at that time living at Columbia. We were in a dormitory on Claremont Avenue, which is right parallel to Broadway at 116th Street. And there was a dormitory called Claremont, a Columbia dorm. So we were living there.
All three of you?
No, just my sister and I.
Okay, I see.
Our pianist was studying at Juilliard at the time. She was not also at Columbia. So she, but we just liked the name. And it's interesting, we always thought of it as a very local place, right, where we live. Right. But as we've traveled around the country and around the world, there are Claremonts everywhere. So
you named after our street?
Yeah, I know. It's sort of a name that can be at home in many places.
Oh, that's cool. So I'm curious to know if you have any memories of like the group's first gigs and stuff after you guys formed, or first opportunities and whatnot.
Well, we were, all students at Juilliard at the time. And so we would perform their recitals. We really got our professional start. We did a competition called Young Concert Artists in New York City, which is a wonderful organization founded by Susan Wadsworth. And she has sort of launched the careers of many, many incredible artists, Richard Good and all kinds of terrific people. And we were very lucky. She had never taken a piano trio before in their auditions. And we kind of pitched the idea. We said, because they hadn't opened the auditions to that. They had said quartets or individual musicians. And we said, could we try as a trio? And they allowed us to try, and then we were very lucky to win that audition. And they really got us started with professional engagements, traveling around, performing. We did a lot of outreach performances as well. And that was when we were all still in school, but it was kind of an amazing opportunity to be able to get out there and just, we had learned a lot of repertoire, but to play it and perform. And I think that's when we kind of got our sea legs as professionals.
Would you say further down the road, were there any like crucial moments in the group's development, like artistically or maybe professionally?
Yeah, I mean, we had some amazing mentors over those first years. Probably the most important one was Bob McDonald, who's a terrific pianist. Actually was Aaron's piano teacher at Juilliard, and a coach that we worked with for many years, and sort of like, I think, helped us find our voice in those, or sort of pushed us to keep searching. And then, so YCA, that was kind of our professional start. We also won an award, the Kallerstein Laredo Robinson International Trio Award. We were the first winners of that, and that also kind of gave us a whole bunch of new opportunities, and that came with a whole set of 20 engagements over the course of 2 years, and the loan of some instruments, and so it was another kind of push. But there've been a number of things over the course of the years that one sort of looks back at. But those were some turning points.
So the group was started in 1999.
99,
yes. Yeah, 25.
Ancient history.
Is it almost 25 years or 24? Do you know the anniversary?
It sort of depends how you count it. I think
fair enough.
You could call this coming on our 25th season.
Okay, we'll say roughly 25 years and that's quite a long time for a group to be together continuously.
Yeah.
And a lot of life can sort of happen in that time. Obviously, there's been changes in membership for the group. Yeah. So I'm just curious to know, like, was the experience like working as a group, like in the long term? Were there any moments of difficulty, or like what keeps you guys coming back to keep making the music together?
Well, it's been an incredible journey. I'll start and then I'll.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the great joys of playing in a group that continues for this many years is being able to live and work with this music together for such a long time. The first time you play a piece of music, it has a special energy and excitement. Yeah. But, when you've played it 20 or 40 times, it sort of has this feeling of being an old friend that you come back to. And that's, I think you kind of grow with that music. It feels very much like a relationship when you come back to certain moments or certain things. That's really a beautiful thing. As you mentioned, we have worked with, Sophiko is now actually our third pianist in the trio. And the first time, our original pianist, Donna Kwong, amazing musician, she left the group when she had her daughter. Her husband was at that time starting a new company and traveling all the time. And so it was just a little too much. And so it felt a little bit like the end of the world when she told us she was going to leave. But actually, in the end, the process of looking and finding our next pianist was Andrea Lamb. She was terrific. And also when Sophiko joined the group, each time I think it felt a little bit like a rebirth that was like actually like opened up a lot of possibilities. Yeah. After 10 or 12 years in one formation, certain things had begun to feel perhaps a little rigid, or like they had to be a certain way, and to have a new artist come in with a new perspective made us say, oh, it could be this way, or to question things that had become assumed. And I think that was actually a really wonderful moment for us both times that we kind of had that transition. So we're so happy to have Sophiko in the group now. She's just also such a beautiful, thoughtful musician, and also just the loveliest person you'd ever want to meet, as you can tell already. So it was Andrea left us during the pandemic. She moved back to Australia, which is where her family was originally, and she kind of everyone found their way back there. So but we were so happy to find Sophiko.
Did you want to add anything?
Yes, I think it really comes down to the human connection. And that's one thing that I immediately appreciated about Emily and Julie, that they were so open and willing to try new ways. Because I can imagine, especially for me, it was quite new. Most of the repertoire I had maybe played once or maybe not played at all, but for them it was so familiar. They know everything inside out, and it would be very easy for me to kind of surrender and follow their lead, but they really encouraged me to just express my own thoughts and contribute and be willing and be free to try new things. So that is the greatest strength of this ensemble, I think.
So you guys play a wide variety of repertoire, right? The standards, maybe, so to speak, some lesser known composers, a lot of contemporary work, which is cool. We'll get into the contemporary stuff a bit more, but I'm curious to start just to know, what's your approach like when you're presenting and recording music that has been interpreted a lot? Maybe by other performers. Sometimes there are famous recordings and all of that sort of stuff. Like, do you put that to the side, or how do you kind of approach that, I guess?
Generally, when I work on a piece that is quite well known and performed many, many times, I always try to stay away for a little while from already made recordings and for my own ideas about it. Spend time with the music and try to develop what I truly think about it, what characters, what moods, what emotions it evokes in me. And then later, once all the ideas are formed, of course, I would go and refer to the recordings that are made already to get some extra inspiration maybe, or maybe change. There are so many different ways of interpreting pieces. So it's really interesting to research that as well. But I think it's really important that we ourselves form really clear idea about the repertoire.
Yeah, I think it's a great question because there are pieces that have become so kind of hallowed in the repertoire. And I grew up listening to a whole lot of music. My parents took us to concerts, but also my dad is a almost fanatic collector of recordings, LPs, CDs, many things. And he has an incredible collection and played a lot of music when we were growing up. And I think that's very much how I learn music, often is by ear, by listening to it. We also, my sister and I both study the Suzuki method, so we learned things by ear as kids. So I love listening to recordings, but I think Sophiko's point is a very good one, that you don't want to feel like you're just taking on what other people did. So, if we're I also would separate somewhat, although sometimes what I do, I like to listen to music by the same composer, but other things. So for working on a Brahms trio, I might listen to the symphonies or to the, the piano works or something like that, which can sort of get you in, into different sonorities of it, different sound worlds, things, but not kind of affect how you play a certain phrase. I think that can be helpful too.
Have you had any passion projects for lesser known composers that have borne fruit? Anything that jumps out?
Well, one of the pieces that we're playing tonight by Fanny Mendelssohn is a piece that was sort of forgotten. It wasn't part of the kind of the canon so much. Her brother, her much better known younger brother, Felix Mendelssohn's trios are some of the most played ones in the repertoire. But I think in her lifetime, she was told in no uncertain terms by her parents that she should be focusing on raising her family, and that music was just something to, she had studied as a child. And, but she still wrote amazing works, and we're so glad to have been able to take this trio and perform it quite a bit. It's really a spectacular piece, and one that we find new richness to every time we come back to it.
Yeah. So. Cool. How do you guys go about putting together music for if you're looking at what your repertoire is going to be as a touring group, pulling things for do people request things from you when you are asked to do concerts, or what? How's that work?
It's combination of both things. I think generally we would like to have a staple piece that is the masterpiece, let's say, of the repertoire. We like to gravitate towards mixing up with contemporary trios with the traditional repertoires to give a range and to also give the audience something that will attract like a staple piece where you can add to it.
Sometimes, or Aaron and I sometimes talk about it, sort of like planning a meal. The main course, something that will feel very satisfying, but you don't want to go right to that. You want to have things that are that complement each other, but that are also some variety, so that you have a mix of flavors and perhaps something that is new that will surprise people or challenge them or make them think or feel in a way they hadn't expected. I think can be nice. And a lot of times I think we're just looking for music that really inspires us, that we really love, and then thinking about how it might pair well together. So.
Yeah.
We like to play ourselves. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. So speaking of new stuff, you do a lot of commissioning from composers. And I'm wondering if you can answer in two parts. So number one, why is that important to you? Maybe as a group, as individuals, and can you talk a little bit about how that process works? From you find someone that you like their work, and then it ends up with you playing it in a concert, right? So
I always like to think that it's important to know what is being composed today, because directly or indirectly, it's usually the reaction of our daily life, of our surrounding and circumstances. And let's take even Kinan's piece that he composed in 2021, the quartet. It was very much derived from his being during the pandemic, the beginning stages, and how it affected him, and how then he was able to translate it into music, and how incredibly he did that. So I think it is important to listen, to know what is being created, and to also to then contribute and share it with the audience, to have that platform to share it to the audience.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I think working with composers is one of the most inspiring things that we do. With older works, we're always kind of trying to recreate something that has already been imagined and conceived. But when you're working with a composer, you're actually sort of part of that creative process.
Yeah.
You can talk to them before they start, and then along the way, and get their perspective on exactly what they were thinking while they wrote it. And that it's so illuminating. We're always trying to imagine what Schubert was thinking, or something there, but to actually be able to talk to someone, and then we play it for them, and they might react and say, "Oh, that's not how I imagined it, but I like this."
Sure.
Or what if you tried it like this? Even yesterday with Kinan, he was still saying, "Oh, if you tried that as a harmonica, and that was really neat," and we all liked it. So that's, for us as performers to be able to be in on that ground level of as things are coming into being, as they're being born a new piece, then that's really exciting. And I think I'm remembering a conversation we had with Yossi Kalkstein, one of our mentors, and he was recommending some pieces, some new contemporary trios that they enjoyed playing. But he was like, "You need to find your generation, your people, your composers that will be kind of, you're gonna create the music of your family, your kind of family of people, and then that will continue this line on that, through time, people have had kind of their composers and performers relationships that really were very fruitful." And he said, "Go out and find yours." And that's been something we've tried to do throughout our career.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like speaking the same language almost, right? Similar. Yeah. It's I always like to play for my colleagues because sometimes colleagues are dealing with similar problems at the same time, and it would be easier to understand something explained by my colleague sometimes than my teacher. So in some way, I guess working with composer, it's like a collaboration that's happening in live action. So yeah, it's very, very exciting to be part of that process.
Well, this ties in super nicely to the, in 2022, you recorded an album exclusively of commissions. So I wonder if you might take some time to just talk about how that project came together and what it was like working on it.
Sure. Well, that was, the recording came out in 2022, but it was a very long kind of lead up to that. I think since we started as a trio, we've been seeking out new music and trying to commission whenever we had the opportunity. We've been very lucky to have a few, some festivals that have commissioned works for us, and also to have what we call our Claremont Commissioning Consortium, which is some family members of ours who've helped us to help fund new works. And so we had been kind of collecting them, and then we got to this point where we had 6 of them that we said, "Oh, these are really great. We'd love to record them." Pieces by Kati Agos, Nico Muli, Judd Greenstein, Sean Shepard, Gabrielle Elena Frank, and Helen Grime. So they're really terrific set of composers. And we had all this music, and it hadn't been recorded yet. So we said, this is, what we'd like to do for our next recording is to put all these pieces down and get them out there so people can hear them. Once there's a really good recording out there, then people hopefully will start to play them all over. And that's happened with a number of them, which is really exciting.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Fantastic. I wonder if you might take a little bit of time to talk about the program for tonight. The pieces that you're playing, anything notable going on in them?
Well, Julie already mentioned briefly that we will play Fanny Mendelssohn's Trio.
Right. Yep.
Very virtuosic, very swirly, lyrical, but also very heroic and tumultuous. So it covers all types of
That's
different
a lot of
emotions.
adjectives, yeah.
Indeed. And the 2017 piece by Kati Agos, Queen of Hearts, which is the title of our concert tonight.
Yeah.
And then we will play the masterpiece, my personal favorite, Schubert's E-flat trio, which is one could describe it as never ending, but to me it's I wish it would never end. That's how it's yes.
Cool, this music.
It's an absolute masterpiece and also covers a wide range of characters.
Sure.
But the first movement is really a big waltzy, majestic movement that just repeats and repeats material all the time, similar to the last movement that feels like it will never end, but sadly it ends at some point. And then the second movement uses the Swedish folk tune, the song, which then builds to two big climaxes in the middle. And then third movement we have a lively scherzo with trio.
Cool.
I'll just say a quick word about Kati Agos's Queen of Hearts, which I think is really a spectacular piece of music. It's she writes it, the structure of it is a chaconne, which means that it has kind of a bass line that repeats through it, but she does an amazing array of different things with that sort of, it's almost like if you think of like the Pachelbel canon that has like a bass line that takes you through it, but it becomes more and more florid on top of it. So the beginning of it is very simple. It starts in a very kind of introspective place and gradually starts to kind of branch out and has some different episodes that are quite there's one that's almost Baroque feeling and some that are very lyrical and soaring. And then it kind of by the end builds to a very big climactic but very cathartic climax. I think it feels like you've kind of lived a journey together and then when it comes back it feels like coming home at the end of that piece.
So. And that's one that people could look up and hear on your album, right?
Yeah, that's from the CD. So
yeah, and the CD is called?
It's called Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts as well. Okay. Make note, people. So great. Just a last question to kind of wrap up with. I'm just curious to know if there's anything upcoming after SkanFest that you guys have that you're looking forward to. Anything you want to talk about?
Well, we have the Gardner performance.
Yeah, we have an exciting season coming up. We'll be back in Boston to play at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which we always love to do. We're going to Chamber Music Society of Detroit for a week-long residency there. We're playing concerts in a number of other places. It should be a fun.
Yes, look up
season.
our website. It's all in there.
We have a new commission that we're working on with a tenor, actually. Composer Jessica Meyer, who's a terrific also performer, composer. She plays viola as well, but she's writing a new work for us with tenor Paul Appleby that will premiere next May in New York City on Aaron's Series Music Mondays. So
great.
That's exciting. The next project.
All right, cool. Well, hey, this was a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you. Right, so the Claremont Trio is with us for a concert on August 16th at the First Presbyterian Church of Skaneateles. You can learn more about SkanFest events and buy tickets at skanfest.org. Thanks again, Julian Sophiko, and we'll catch you on the next episode.